Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of CVtv Live. My name is Carlos, and today we have a special treat. Actually, today is the first time we're going international, which is, no, you know what? No, it's the second time we're going international, but we're going down under. So we have a fantastic guest today who's been in the hobby for a few years, has a fantastic channel, a huge following, and oh my God, I am so excited about it because he's a multi-talented hobbyist here. He's and I don't want to say too much, but we'll get to that part right now. Before we get started, though, I want to say hello to Luis on Facebook, Battle OCR on YouTube. I want to say Port Wolf, Brian Sanchez. Everybody, how's everybody doing? Hey, man, Daniel Creron, he's there, and Sky have Reef as well here. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining us. This is so much fun. If you just a shameless plug in here, if you like the channel, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button or that like button, and that way you will be reminded anytime we have a live broadcast like we have today. And today you do not want to miss this one. Hey, Beeves Reef, Brad Austin, B2 also, and Bruce also. Thank you so much for joining us and on YouTube and in Facebook. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring our guest here. Our guest is Sam Parker. And hey, Sam, how are you, man?
Hey, good, Carlos, and yourself?
I'm doing well. How's everything going down there, I guess?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, for your viewers, if you're not aware, it's 9 a.m. in the morning here. So my daughter's just left for school. I've just finished my breakfast, and here we are live streaming.
I know, it's like, boy, you're starting the day. It is what is it? It's 4 o'clock here Central Time, 4 o'clock p.m., but it's 4 o'clock yesterday for you.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's one of the strange things that Australia is actually slightly ahead of there, just in time, I guess.
So what part of Australia are you from?
I'm from Geelong, which not many people will know Geelong, but I'm hoping some of your viewers will know Melbourne. That's about 50 minutes from here. So Melbourne's our nearest capital, and I'm just a bit further down south, a bit closer to the Great Ocean Road for people that know some of the amazing beaches and drives along some of the most iconic Australian coastline.
That is fantastic. I you know, that's in my bucket list, is to make it down to Australia one of these days. And I know, I'm going to make this question in here. Has anybody in our chat room, has anybody been to Australia? If you have, put a shout out, maybe post some pictures, that'll be freaking awesome. We always enjoy pictures. And, I want to say hello to Bob Winfrey. I want to say hello to Andrew Martinez. Hello, man. Mark Felder is here. Also, Mark Kinnery, Eric is here. So, man, we have Alexi is here too. We have quite a crowd. That's great. You're bringing out the masses, man. That's awesome.
Well, it's an awkward time for the Australian viewers. I mean, we got a lot of people currently at work. I've been fortunate enough to get a little bit of a leave pass for this morning, which puts an extra smile on my face. But I mean, it's great. I'm really happy to be a part of the CVtv stream because. Yeah, my channel does have a decent following, and it's grown exponentially this year. But I'm really keen to introduce myself to a lot of your viewers, and hopefully we can cross-pollinate a little bit of our viewers and share the reefing love.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, I want to say hello to Chris Conti is here, and then I know we had a couple of Australians, a couple of fellow people from Australia in here. This is awesome. This is awesome. Sunny. What else we have in here? Who else do we have? John Talbert is here too. Wow. My. So, Sam, how is it down there in terms of, I don't want to put a damper down, but I do want to,
sure.
I do want to ask because, we all care about it's, this is one of the few things that, in my opinion, has united humanity in a way that very few things have. It's a common enemy or a common disease And I know we have cancer and everything, but the way COVID has brought everybody together and tried to work together, it surprises me. And the fact that you guys are going through it and we're going through here, gives us a commonality. We're not that different after all.
Indeed. Yeah, look, so in my state, Victoria, where Geelong and Melbourne is, we went through some of the toughest restrictions in the world. At one stage, I think we were the most locked down state in the world. We had some fairly tight restrictions where we're only allowed outside of our house for a maximum of an hour a day for exercise. A lot of our stores were closed, anything that was not essential, which made it very, very difficult for a lot of my friends and colleagues that are in the reefing industry. There was a very delicate balance there because it's a pet supply industry as to whether that was deemed essential or not. Obviously, you need to have supplies to keep your fish and corals alive, but it realistically wasn't really open for people to be shopping for new fish and coral. It wasn't really meant to be a retail exercise. It was more just essential services. So it's been a challenging year, but you're spot on. It has absolutely united, not just worldwide, but particularly in Australia as well. There's been a lot of support from between stores, between hobbyists. Things like the online community's really grown and it brought people together as well. So there's definitely been some silver linings to those very, very dark clouds.
Yeah, I've noticed that, it's myself in my personal life and also just professional life. I spend more time talking to people now in the last, 9 months that I did when I was able to go and travel and go somewhere and visit, which, it's amazing how we take things for granted until we can.
Absolutely.
And then we reach out and I love that about it. We're having here in America, we're a couple of days from having Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And unfortunately for us here in America, because of the winter, COVID is getting a little bit, it's ramping up to the point where I am in Chicago and we have very strict rules right now where we are under a advisory to stay at home, which means that you don't have to stay at home if you don't want to. But let's face it, I think, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time before they switch into an order to stay at home just because of the way things are. But the thing about it is that with Thanksgiving, a lot of people have been canceling Thanksgiving, or you're doing Thanksgiving by yourself here in America. I don't know if you have something like that in Australia. You probably do.
Yeah, we've got a few sort of national holidays and things like that. But yeah, you're spot on. We had some 5-kilometer travel restrictions here. Now, 5 kilometers is about, testing my maths, but about 3 miles.
Yeah.
And if you were more than 3 miles away from your house, you could be arrested.
Wow. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. We're not that crazy. Just because that would violate a lot of constitutional laws here in the United States. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. The government can't get away with such a militant, sometimes militant take on things, because that's just the way we don't work. But the one thing that I was going to say is that Thanksgiving, my wife and I are doing Thanksgiving, and what we're going to do is we are scheduling Zoom calls with everybody so that we can at least break bread, have a prayer, and then, chat a little bit and then hang up. So even though we're far apart and everybody's at home, we're still together, which is kind of nice, and it's a silver lining, as you call it.
That's it. I mean, thankfully it has happened in 2020, not 1995 or something like that. I can't imagine.
Oh wow.
Work and personal life without the internet and technology that we have available today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that's one of the things about technology, that it's helped if it's used in the proper, for good and not for something else, not for evil, as they say. So let's talk about you here, Sam, because you have you've been in the hobby for 7-8 years, I think. Is that what you said?
Yeah, probably possibly for the hobby all up maybe 8 to 9 years now. Yeah, which sadly makes me a well-experienced reefer. Personally, from the hobbies I've had previously, 7 or 8 years would make you a newbie. But unfortunately, with the natural attrition rate of reef keeping,
Yeah.
We tend to see a lot of people come and go within those first couple of years. So the fact that I've been around for almost a decade makes me supposedly a very experienced reefer.
That is fantastic. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I think a lot of people in here have been in the hobby for. I mean, I know people in here in our chat room have been in the hobby for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You know, I started in the hobby back in the late '90s. You know, and it was funny because I had a fish store, and then they gave me a small tank, a clownfish, and an anemone. That was my opening. And I was like, you know, now hindsight, I'm like, really? But back then I thought it was the coolest thing, you know? And amazingly enough, I kept that anemone and clownfish for a few years before, before it just gave up on me. And I upgraded a couple times during that time, you know?
Yeah, that tends to be what we all do. We tend to start for something small, and we think that's very expensive and a big tank, and then you upgrade 4 or 5 times and you end up with something.
Yeah.
This big piece behind me here.
Which we'll get into that, but that is absolutely a beautiful tank. I am envious because mine is not that clean. You know, mine started that way at one point, and it just kind of went, crazy. You know, it's one of the curses of working, for a company. It's like sometimes you don't take care of your tank as much as you would like to.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, gee. So you have a YouTube video channel, and then you post a lot of videos all the time, and you have about 7,000 subscribers. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, we've just surpassed 10,000, so we're at about 10,500 now. So it's grown a lot. I think it was about only March this year that I hit the 5,000 mark. So I mean, it's only been a few months since they had to double. So things are escalating quickly, which is great because it's full disclosure. It was never. The YouTube channel was never something that I set out to do and to reach a certain number of subscribers. I was enjoying the hobby, and I just wanted to basically share my adventures with it. Talk about the tanks that I see, the stores that I go to, the products that I buy and test, and just wanted to share my experience. And I've been fortunate enough that it has opened a few doors for me, and the ability now to be invited. I mean, this time last year, I think my wife we were joking about how this year I haven't really gone anywhere due to COVID, but this time last year, I think I'd done about 20 flights to different states, different cities to see stores, to see distributors, to see people's tanks. I'm incredibly humbled that it has opened those doors for me to really just dive deeper into this hobby that I really love.
Yeah, so I'm going to have our producer here post a link to your channel on our chat right here, because it's Parker's Reef channel, and you have to get people, guys, you have to subscribe. This is, I've been browsing that channel. I'm like, oh my God, gee, it's like, Sam, man, this is amazing. What you have done in such little time it's outstanding. And it's just a testament of the love that you have for the hobby and for the community, because to me, what I see from the channel is that you're not there to make money. You're there to share information.
No, definitely not.
It's kind of like that old reefer, the old hobbyist kind of mentality.
For sure. Look, I'm incredibly lucky. I have a great job. I work at a local university here, which is very flexible with their working hours, which is great for me. That pays the bills. That puts the roof over our head. The YouTube channel is just purely my passion for the hobby, and like I said, I'm super thankful for the doors it has opened, realistically, just for me to get further into this hobby. I started last year, maybe the end of the year before, doing some frag shows. We called them frag stock here in Australia, where I noticed a little bit of a divide between people that were doing coral fragging from their home tanks and then were selling those to other reefers and local fish shops. There was a little bit of a divide sort of brewing there, and people thinking they're stealing market share and working against each other rather than working with each other. So I mean, it's nothing unique. I mean, it's been done worldwide, but I facilitated some frag stock events that were held within stores. It allowed hobbyists to bring their frags in and sell them at the local fish shop. And we'd bring crowds in. The hobbyist benefited, the frag sellers benefited, and the local fish store benefited. And thankfully, that allowed me to to get around all around Australia, which Australia's a pretty big nation. And it let me take it to every state around Australia. And it was very, very, it was great. I got to meet so many hobbyists and make so many great connections with store owners and hobbyists from all around the country. And that really, that's the sort of thing that I love to get out of this hobby. As much as I love the technology and I love talking online, being able to see people face to face and or either see their tanks or just talk to them about their adventures, their journeys, their successes, their failures, and all learn from that. It's what I really love about it.
That's amazing. Now I see right here that you've actually not only do you go to local fish stores and visit other hobbyists, but you also volunteer at local fish store.
Yeah.
So what do you do there? I'm interested.
So as we touched on before, this year in particular, with the COVID restrictions, you weren't allowed more than 5 kilometers or 3 miles from your house unless you had a work permit explaining that you needed to go do essential work. And thankfully for me, my local fish shop, the owner of that store, he's a good friend of mine, and he's been instrumental in setting up this tank behind me and throughout my entire journey in reefing. It was obviously a fairly difficult time for local fish stores when people aren't allowed out of their house. It's a difficult time. He's still got bills to pay. He's still got rent to pay. He's got to try and keep his family afloat. And from a purely personal aspect, I missed that human interaction. And whilst I'm setting up this tank, obviously you can see behind me, there's not exactly a lot of livestock in there just yet because it's completed its cycle now. But I really enjoyed hanging out at my local fish shop and seeing the new coral that comes in, seeing the fish, talking to people, just having a drink, having a chat, just maybe sharing a pizza and talking about reef keeping. So when the restrictions came in the first month or so, where I didn't leave my home, I worked from home, we schooled my daughter from home, we got our groceries delivered, I didn't leave the house. And realistically, mentally, it wasn't a good thing. You need to get out, you need to see people, you need to interact. So we came up with the idea of volunteering at my local fish shop just on a Saturday. So obviously I still got to work Monday to Friday, my day job. But on a Saturday, which is probably the bread and butter day. So that gave me an official work permit, which gave me the ability to get through the police checks and leave my home and all of those exciting things. It ended up really being a win-win. I was able to help out my friend who runs a local fish shop. We're able to take a lot of pictures of his fish and coral and products and get them online so that he can sell things and, keep a roof above his head. And it also gave me the ability to get out and still interact with the fish, the coral, the new products, to chat reefs with people coming in, and it just ended up being a really good arrangement. So now our restrictions have eased. We haven't had a case of COVID here in our state for, I think we're 29 or 30 days now. So our restrictions are coming down again.
Okay,
it's fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to continue volunteering at my local fish shop as long as I can, because it's probably been the highlight of my year.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, which is a fantastic idea. It doesn't matter if it's your local fish store. It could be a pet center. It could be a pet store. It could be anything, a homeless shelter, anything. If you have the time, volunteer. If anything is to get out of the house mentally, you have to leave your house. And you're spending your time doing something good for the community, which is great. I think we should take that to heart and continue to do that, and even expand it in here. So I applaud you for doing that. That is fantastic. And helping out your friend, because I know it's tough for local businesses right now to compete, and the fact that you're giving him pictures, high quality, amazing pictures, and we'll cover that later in all this. I mean, you're giving him a new avenue to sell his product online, and I wouldn't be surprised if his online, when everything was closing, his online sales were keeping him afloat a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it even just even if the sales aren't up there, just keeping the front of people's mind. I mean, we're talking about guerrilla marketing, but just reminding people that the store is there and the items they carry, just keeping that constant presence there just helps keep those little sales tick over. And and for him
to feel not so helpless. You know, hey, you know, you're not here alone. You know, I'm here, I'm your friend, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to help you out, because today I help you, tomorrow it may turn around and you know, it might be, you know, you will do the same thing for me if I were in your shoes.
Look, Dave, who owns my local fish shop, the guy puts in endless hours on helping make things like my Dream Reef tank be a true Dream Reef tank. The amount of work he puts in, even just spitballing ideas. Have you thought about this? And should we do this? And should we design this, or should we do that? Or sourcing products that can be difficult to find in Australia, or items, and then just pure labor. The amount of hours he spent on the rockscape behind me. I'm a terrible aquascaper. My tank would look terrible if it was left to me to arrange the rocks, where Dave is an absolute artist with it. And the guy spent so many hours. He'd come into his store well before opening and stay well after close, just so he could work on the rock work on his store floor. So, I mean, he goes to a lot of trouble for me, so it's absolutely the least I can do back.
So Dave's store, what's the name of the store?
It's called Deer Park Aquarium.
Is there a website? Is there a website? Maybe I can have my producers check out the website, because obviously right now it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Australia. We're probably not going to get that many Aussies to be watching, but a little bit later they'll be watching it, and it would be very nice for us to shout out a little, a comment in there for Dave's store. Please help him out. It's a local store. Please help out your local stores, your local restaurants, your local shops, because they're the ones suffering. And you know what? Those are the stores that we need. Yes, online, but you know, emergency times, when you need that food, when you need that carbon because something went bad, because you need salt because something went bad, you're not going to be able to ship it. You have to drive to the store and pick it up. So they are essential to our, to our life. So please make sure that you support them.
Yeah, and Dave would say exactly the same thing. You will find his site. He doesn't actually have a website just yet. He does it all through his Facebook page. You'll find Deer Park Aquarium. But Dave would be the first person to say, support your local fish shop. He's not too fussed about trying to bring in new customers. He's happy to support his existing customers. But he's the sort of guy that is very proud of the bricks and mortar store out there, and supporting hobbyists and stores near those hobbyists. So by all means, yeah, guys, get down to your local fish shop while you can, while they're still there. And even if you're not there to buy, if you're just there to chew the fat, to talk about reef keeping and browse, it's always a good place to start.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So support your local stores. So in the meantime, while we do this, I want to just take a little time to say hello to a few people. Michael Schrader on Facebook. We have Jeff Johnson, who's our social media director here at CoralVue. George Fallon. George, buddy, how are you, man? George in Australia. It's a little early in there, but it's always good to see you. Good to read from you. I miss seeing your face at the shows. Reef Community Worldwide also saying hello. Thank you so much. And Jeff Bernadette right here. So as well, thank you for joining us. So Sam, you are a man of many talents.
I'm not sure if I've got many talents, but when I do get involved in a hobby, I tend to go all in. I don't dabble with things. I try to take them as far as I can.
So my notes here that says that you were a professional drag racer. Now, wait a minute. Run that by me. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I grew up in a motorsport family. There's me racing my Top Fuel motorcycle. So that's obviously a purpose-built, supercharged 4-cylinder motorcycle that runs on nitromethane. That one did the quarter mile in 6.7 seconds at about 215 mile an hour. I grew up in a motorsport family. So by the time I was born, my father was already racing motorbikes. And then once I must admit, I mean, when you're a baby and a young child, you tend not to get too involved in these things. But our regulations out here, you can't race until you're 18, which is a bit later than some of the other parts of the world. But from about 12 years old, I got very heavily involved in the motorsport and ended up becoming the crew chief on my father's race operation from about 12, 14. Got fairly comfortable in tuning these high performance motorcycles, and then as soon as I turned 18, literally the day I turned 18, we went and got my driver's license, which was required to apply for your racing license, and then we drove about 9 hours to a regional track that had a race meeting that day. So the day I turned 18, we could go and race. And from that moment on, as soon as both my father and I were both racing at the same time, things escalated quite quickly, because all of a sudden we had, I guess we had common interests. We had a 2-bike team, and we had probably twice the budget. So things escalated very quickly once we were both racing, and before we know it, we were at that top tier level racing top fuel motorbikes. And I raced those for maybe about 8 or 9 years. And in full disclosure, we raced in the professional level categories. We raced against people that were doing it for a living. We were not doing it for a living. It was still a hobby for us. So even though I'd say professional drag racing, it was not my job. And we ran on a budget, probably about 5 to 10% of some of the top teams.
Oh my.
So our goalposts of what we were trying to achieve was not so much to win national titles, but to trouble those the big teams. If we could out-qualify them, or if we could beat them here or there and around, we'd be stoked. And yeah, it's funny enough, a lot of people ask me about, do I miss the speed from drag racing? And I don't so much miss the speed or the acceleration as much of an adrenaline rush that it was. I really, the thing I took away the most.
I think we've lost some audio from Sam. Probably just the headsets ran out of battery. So while troubleshoot a little bit of that, I want to say hello to Luis again. Yes, Jeremy, 6.7 seconds. That's pretty darn fast. Jordan Neal, also, that's amazing. Thank you for joining us. Let's see what we have here. One of the things that I wanted to talk about for Sam was to talk about what the USA and Australia reefing would be, and as soon as we get him back online, we'll get to that part. We have he's an amazing photographer, and we're going to be talking about photographs and how to take photographs as well, which is to me, that should be something at a show by itself. So I think we got Sam back. Sam, I think we there you go. I thought I heard him. No, I don't. I can see him talk. I think we don't have I see your feed, but I can't hear you. So anyway, it's 9 o'clock in the morning over there. So, you know, that time difference between morning and between yesterday and tomorrow is driving technology a little crazy here. Just to go over things, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You know, besides this little technical difficulty, if you like the show, if you like seeing people from around the world talking and talking about reefs and exchanging ideas and exchanging, you know, tips, then please sign up. Sign up to the just hit the like button, you know, subscribe button, and let us know. Also, you know, you can always shoot us an email. You know, hello.
Hopefully you guys can hear me now.
Yes, and I think we have him back. We have him back. So always shoot us an email, hello@coralvue.com, or subscribe to the channel, either Facebook or YouTube, and then you'll be notified exactly when the live feed starts again. So I think we have Sam back. Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah.
I could
I'm
see.
not sure why my microphone source decided to just switch from the AirPods to the laptop. You know, technology.
It's okay. It's okay. We're good. So so we were talking about racing, but you're, like I said, you're a man of many talents. So I know it's kind of a cool thing. And a little birdie told me that you play pinball competitively, and not only that, you're actually ranked in the world.
Yeah, this year's taken a real hit on my world ranking. That's a bit of a lineup of my pinball collection there. which is just what I get my practice in on. I must admit, I've been into pinball for probably maybe about 15 years, and I was mostly really involved in restoring them and flipping them. Basically, I would buy one that was old and damaged and not working and dirty, and I'd clean it up and get the electronics all working and sell it for a pretty handy little profit. And as a result, you tend to play them a little bit while you have them. And then it was maybe about 2.5 years ago, a friend of mine introduced me into the world of IFPA, which is I think it's the International Federation of Pinball Association or something like that. I should know the acronym. Along that, anyway, it's IFPA, and it is the world rankings of pinball playing. So we got to go to a few tournaments, accredited tournaments, and play there, and it was great. I mean, I've done probably maybe about 20 tournaments now, accredited tournaments, and I've won one. I've come third in a couple. I've come down around 50 or 60 in a couple of them, but up until the start of this year, my world ranking had started creeping up around the 2,000 in the world mark. It has slipped back to about 4,500 in the world now. So I'm back almost, not where I started. I think I started off around 40,000 or something in the world, but I was really narrowing up into that top 1,000. But I'll have to get back onto it again. Hopefully next year we can get out there and flip a few steel balls around.
That is amazing. I have a friend up in David Polson who lives up in Waukesha in Wisconsin, and he also not pinballs, but he does. He used to do arcade machines, old arcade machines, and restore them and then flip them, like you said. And it is amazing how much work. And I didn't know that there's a huge market for them. Yeah,
it's one of those things where I guess people that played them in the 90s was really the heyday of pinball in an arcade sense. Mm-hmm. So people that were in their, say, teens in say the 1990s are now in their mid 40s, nearing 50s, and have possibly got a little bit more disposable income. Yes. So they're trying to relive their teen days, and particularly this year. And I think COVID's most likely got something to do with that, with people all being home. The price of pinball machines have, at least in Australia anyway, has absolutely skyrocketed.
Wow.
They always go up a little bit in value, but this year, they've pretty much doubled in value.
Wow, yeah, pinball machines and workout machines too have
going up in I can imagine.
I don't think they go up in price, but it's like, you buy a spinning bike and it'll be here in 6 months. Once it's all over, then we'll deliver it to you, because I
can imagine. Now we'll take your money now and we'll give it to you later.
Exactly. So as everybody know here, Sam is from Australia. So now everybody in the world knows that Australians love slang and love shortening words. It's
Indeed.
Like because you guys get charged by the letter.
That's right. We're obviously very busy people, and we have to shorten everything down to its lowest common denominator.
So I hear that you have a test for me on Australian slang. Is that how you say it, or what is it?
Yeah. I thought it might be a bit of fun to test your Australian slang knowledge and to see whether if you get it within the ballpark or whether you hit the nail on the head. We'll see.
Now, am I allowed to call for? Do I have Lifeline? Can I have people from the chat help me out and tell me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As long as the Australians on the chat don't help out too much, because this is basically our primary language. So if you're an Australian, please don't give it away.
Okay. So if you're in Australia, don't give it away. If you're in America, go for it. Help me out. So I'm ready for the first question.
All right.
Bludger. Is that how do you pronounce it?
Bludger. Yes. Bludger. Yes.
Okay. Sounds like something painful. Please don't tell me his mother-in-law, because then I'd be in trouble. God, like a blunder, a mistake.
Not quite. No, you got to use any lifelines? Anyone on the chat got any?
Okay. Somebody says Marco Peralta says knife. A knife.
Well, it's a good try, but no, you are off the mark there.
Okay. Don't fall in the drink, like drunk, maybe? No?
That's close. That's kind of it's getting warmer. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, it's getting done. Okay, so it's like mistake.
Or you're going cold again. I'll put you out of your misery if you like.
All right. Come on,
So,
people, help me out here. You know, it's so.
I'll let you have this one. A bludger in Australian slang is a lazy person. So someone that just kind of sits around, they didn't do anything. They're a bludger.
I was so close.
You were getting there. Yeah, absolutely.
I was so close. Yeah, like the Grand Canyon close. Like from North Australia to South Australia close. That's how
you were on the money.
Okay. Ripper?
Yeah, Ripper.
Ripper. Like Jack the Ripper. A killer?
Yeah, it's spelled the same way as Jack the Ripper, but yeah, very different meaning from Jack the Ripper. That's
okay. Oh God, no. Okay, come on, guys, help me out here. You know, technically, I don't know you're from Australia, for you could still say it, and it'll be okay. George, come on, help me out here, man. You know, there have been times.
Come on, George.
We've broken
George
bread.
loves an Aussie slang as much as anything.
A riptide, a surfer. That's what it says.
There's some decent guesses. No, a ripper is a good thing.
Oh.
So when someone says, I'm going to go to the local fish shop, do you want to come? And they'll go, Ripper.
Okay. That's cool. All right, next one. Fair dinkum.
Pronounced perfectly. Well done.
Fair dinkum. Oh my God. Good thing?
Sort of.
Perfect. Good job? No?
You're on the right sort of track there. Fair dinkum. So it's basically agreeing. I mean, you can use it in a few different contexts, but if someone says something and you say back fair dinkum, that basically means you're agreeing, but you've got a slight questioning tone. So you could say, see that fish there? I bought that on the weekend for $100. And you'll go, fair dinkum. Like, okay. You're saying, okay, you're right, but I don't really believe you.
You're BSing me. Like, is it in America? It's like, yeah. You say fair dinkum, we say bullshit. Sorry.
We say that too sometimes. Don't worry.
Not a kids-rated show, so we just say bullshit. All right. Oh my God. Hard yakka? Hard yakka,
yeah. This is one you should be good at, Carlos. You'll know this one.
Hard worker.
Hey, well done.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I knew you'd know that one.
Yes.
Hard yakka is, it's when you've got some tough work. So if we relate it back to a fish tank sense, if you could say you're talking to your friend and you say, are you free on the weekend? I've got some hard yakka for you. And they'll be like, what do you need to do? I've got to lift this tank up onto the stand.
See, we would say, I'm busy. Or I'm busy, or I'll help only if I can move the pillows. That's what you say.
Fair enough.
All right. Do we have any more? Oh. Okay. Come on. Thong. Really?
This one. I'm sure like the cultural diversity has made its way to Australia. You guys know what we call a thong.
Well, I mean, for me, a thong is a very tiny bikini,
But that's not what we call them in Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a hard one.
While you're thinking about that, I'm going to change headsets.
Somebody said flip-flop. Somebody that can't make up their mind. All right. I think somebody that can't make up their mind. That's what I'm thinking.
Flip-flop. Can you hear me there now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Flip-flop is, thong is a flip-flop. So, the casual footwear.
Oh, okay. Havaiana in Brazil, flip-flop.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So, we call them thongs down here, which, can be slightly awkward if, if you have an American in the conversation and you say, oh, tell grandma to bring her thongs. They'll sort of look at you a bit strange, and women, no, the footwear. My grandma's not going to bring a tiny bikini. It's okay.
I love that. I love that. This is fun. I mean, okay. Bottle. Whew. Oh my God. You know, guys, it's supposed to be English.
Yep.
You know, I'm not going to say the same thing because I speak Spanish too. And if you go down from Mexico all the way down to Chile, I mean, there's a lot of words on there that it's like, what? Wait a minute. What did you just say? And it takes translation too sometimes. Even though we speak the same language, sometimes we don't.
For sure.
But this is crazy. Okay, bottle. A drink of a Coke.
It's pretty good. I'm looking at some of the comments coming in. People are on the right track. A bottle is it's basically a liquor store. So you say you're going down to the bottle.
I would frequent those places a lot.
And that's when you'd reply with fair dinkum or ripper or.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Okay, Stubby.
Yeah, Stubby.
Stubby. Short person? No?
Not quite. I mean, you could call them a stubby, I guess. Oh, someone in the comments got it right. Unless that was for the previous one.
Yeah, place to buy beer, got bottle opener. Okay. Stubby, no. A person that is stubborn.
That's an excellent guess. But no, it's very closely related to the previous one. A stubby is it's a bottle of beer. We have, I guess in Australia, I'm not sure if you have the equivalent in America. We have basically long necks and stubbies. A stubby is, I don't know, basically one standard drink, and a long neck is probably about 3 standard drinks. They're
we go by ounces. By ounces.
Yeah.
You want the big, the ounce or something like that. Yes, that's what we do, but not a stubby. But Corona does have this tiny little beers like that. It makes sense. They call stubbies.
Yes, although they've still got quite a long neck on them, the Corona ones, where in Australia, the stubbies, they're basically a glass version of a can. They're quite stubby.
Oh, okay.
And Australia, we love our beer.
Now, this one right here is, I'm going to butcher this one because I'm not sure if it's or Dax?
Dax, you got it in one.
Dax. Okay, Dax. Oh, boy.
I'll give you a sentence. You don't want to lose your Dax.
You don't want to lose your Dax.
You don't want to lose your Dax.
Okay. Not beers.
No, you wouldn't want to lose your beers.
Okay. Your pants?
Hey, well done.
Yes,
you nailed it.
Peter,
Yeah, you got a little bit of help there from Peter.
Peter and I go a long way. We did a hot sauce contest last time, and
I saw that.
Yeah, it was painful. Next time
I'm glad we're not doing that here.
Yeah, next time we're bringing you over.
I'm happy doing the Aussie slang with that hot sauce, man. I was putting tears in my eyes watching that. Okay, so
this word right here, ute?
Ute, yeah.
Okay, so that word reminds me of my cousin Vinny. The ute. What's a ute? A youth, Judge, Your Honor, a youth. I'm a youth. Is that a young person?
It's not a young person. No. It's sort of pronounced similar, I guess. Youth. Yeah. There's some similarities there.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say there's definitely some similarities there between the pronunciation of ute and youth, but.
Okay. Somebody says. Okay, so I'm starting to think that people right here have found Google because
it looks like it.
3-4 in a row that says a truck, and it's like. Okay, come on, guys. No cheating. No cheating here.
They're definitely on the money there. It is a truck. It's a pickup truck. It's, as Australians tend to do, we shorten things down. So originally we called them utilities because they were they had that space on the back where you could put, whether it be something large or whatnot. So they were officially utilities, but we just shortened that down to ute.
Yeah, I knew that. That's something that I have heard from, watching TV and other things. It's like you guys tend to short everything. Like breakfast is brekkie. Yes. That I knew. McDonald's is maca. You know?
Yeah, Macca's. Yep.
Macnas, yeah, or Macanas. It's like, you know, it's just funny. Okay, so Esky, it's an Eskimo.
Not quite.
A desk.
No.
No, okay. Hey. All right, guys. YouTube here. Come on. You know, come on. You guys are getting too slow here.
Google won't know what's happening. They'll be like, why are all these Australian slang words coming in?
A skier, a dog. It says a dog, skid car, skis. No.
No, we're a bit off there.
Yeah.
An esky is what you guys call a cooler.
Oh, which is Eskimo, cold. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay.
It makes sense. So you might say, you know, we're going to jump in the ute, go down to the bottle-o, pick up some stubbies, and chuck them in the esky. That's a pretty standard conversation.
Let me get my translator app here first. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I thought I was in Australia. You know, where did I land it? You know what? Americans, we have such a Australia for me is such a, there's this romantic part of it about it. You know, it's like you are there, but you're so far away. And it's just a beautiful
it is funny.
And you guys are so, every Australian that I've met, you know, George and you know, a couple of friends I have, they're so nice. I mean, you guys are always laughing, always smiling. It's like,
yeah, well, you know, we live in the best part of the world. What's not to be happy about?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay, next word, snag.
Snag, yeah. This is one that Aussies love.
A problem.
Oh, that's another. We would use snag, but that, I mean, for that purpose. But no, we have a whole separate meaning, completely different.
Okay. This is like almost like Spanish double meanings. Which this channel would still not be safe for that if I were to do that.
This is snag's a word that most Australians, we have a big box hardware store here called Bunnings, and they famously sell snags out the front on the weekends, and it's almost an Australian rite of passage to get a snag from Bunnings on the weekend.
So
I'm guessing by the eyebrow.
So you're stealing something from the front of the
No, you're buying.
You're snagging something. You know, Jeremy Reichel said mother-in-law. You know, I'm gonna tell you mother-in-law, Jeremy, a sausage.
A sausage is correct. Yes. Normally a sausage and bread. It doesn't get any more Australian than having a sausage and bread from Bunnings on the weekend.
That sounds really good. How do you any dressing on it or anything, or what do you guys put on?
I mean, there was big controversy here this year because, or maybe late last year, we normally have a little bit of fried onion on them. And so people would go to Bunnings, the hardware store, and they'd get a sausage out the front with onion, and then they'd walk around the hardware store, which was just polished concrete flooring. And unfortunately, someone had some onion slip off the snag, and then someone stood on it and slipped. So then there was correct. There was huge controversy following that because Bunnings tried to remove the onion. They were not going to sell onion. They said it was too dangerous. And then they, in typical Australian fashion, we conceded, and they said that the onion has to go on the bottom with the sausage on top, and that was going to somehow make it safe.
God, you know what? That is, we here in Chicago. I live in Chicago, so hot dogs in Chicago are sacred.
Yes.
There's a particular way you make a hot dog, and then which is the good way, and then every other way of doing a hot dog. You know, the funny thing we do, the one rule in Chicago, you know, we forgive a lot of things on a hot dog, but we will not forgive putting ketchup on a hot dog. You do not put ketchup on a hot dog. That would be bad.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That would be the first thing I put on ketchup and mustard.
Yeah. No. Here in Chicago, you can do it. In most of the United States, probably you can, I think, but in Chicago, nope. That's a big no-no.
Right. You know? Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how many words in here, but I'm starting to feel like one of those spelling bees in here, where I have to, I'm a little nervous and starting to sweat. Bogan. Bogan.
Bogan, yeah.
Oh, Bogan.
This would be you would describe a person as a bogan.
Loud? No.
Sort of, could be, but not necessarily.
Oh God, a person, a bogan person. Is it a good or bad? Is it good or bad?
Ironically, in true Australian tradition, it is really meant to be bad.
Okay.
However, some people would wear it as a badge of pride.
Okay, so Jeff Rust said bogus.
Bogus? No, you're off the money there, Jeff.
Okay. A vegan person.
No, it would be pretty polar opposite of a vegan.
Bruce says a low-class person.
Yeah, that's a fair description. I think probably the closest translation to America would be the Australian equivalent of white trash.
Oh, okay.
So you go, oh, they're a bunch of bogans. Don't worry about them. So definitely not vegans. The two probably don't cross paths all that often.
All right. So my last word.
Yes.
Oh my God. Crapper?
Cropper, yeah.
Cropper. Oh God.
Cropper. Listening to you try to pronounce
I know,
Australian accent is gold.
It's weird. It's it's English, but I feel like I'm pronouncing French.
Yeah, cropper. So it's, I mean, obviously we're a sentence there. So it's you might be describing what happened in an event, either to yourself or someone else.
Ooh, an event. Oh, see, it looks to me too literal, like haircut or.
Yeah, that's a fair. It's not near it, but it's a fair guess.
Bad luck.
Bad luck? No. I mean, well, it wouldn't be good luck, but it's not the definition.
Okay. You had a great time.
Hopefully not if you come a cropper. I'll put you out of your misery. Coming a cropper means that you've had a fall, or a crash or something like that. So if I try to link it into some of our other sayings, you could say that you were jumping in the ute to head down to the bottle to get some stubbies, but on the way you come a cropper and the esky fell out the back.
Yeah, that's bad, especially that esky falling out the back, because I mean everything is good. You get rid of that beer and like,
exactly. That's when you know you've really come a cropper.
Yeah, that's it. Oh my God, this is hilarious. I mean, I never. Oh my God, this is like. I'm gonna have to think twice before I'm gonna have. Do they have this on Duolingo?
I don't think so, but you'd be surprised at how quickly you'd pick it up.
Out of need.
Otherwise, you never know what you're going to be agreeing to.
All right, so going back to the hobby here, let's talk about things that,
sure.
What we're here for. And one of the biggest things that I want to talk about is how is the hobby different between the U.S. and Australia? And obviously, you've been around the world. You've visited the U.S. You've seen, and obviously, with the U.S., you see YouTube, you see everything, because I mean, it's just, we're always out there. We're loud and we're out there. No matter if you don't want to see us or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're out there. So how is the hobby different for you guys in Australia and for us? What are the differences?
Yeah. So some of the probably some of the biggest differences between America and Australia for the reefing hobby, pretty much all hovers around the Great Barrier Reef, in that obviously we have this incredible reef here. Now that has advantages and, depending on how you look at it, some disadvantages too, in that we have access to some of the world's, if not the world's, most beautiful corals through the Great Barrier Reef, which means we can get large, we can get like aquapora colonies like the size of 2 hands for, like $50 Australian, which might be like about $35 US. So we get access to some very, very good, very nice high quality corals at a very good price. The disadvantage is, because we have this Great Barrier Reef there that we're very, very protective of, we cannot import corals. So in Australia, the only corals you'll find in reef tanks are Australian corals.
Wow, that is that takes out. I mean, that takes out a big chunk of American corals here. I mean, that we
definitely, yeah. We see you guys talking about importing from Indonesia and all other parts of the world. We don't have access to those anyway. We only have Australian. Well, I should say we should only have Australian corals here, as whenever there's a supply and demand, there does tend to be a couple of sneaky things brought in occasionally that you see in some people's tanks. But legally, we should just have Australian corals in our tanks. Now, it doesn't mean we can't import fish. Fish can come from anywhere in the world. They get quarantined and are free to come into Australia, but corals and inverts. So some things like emerald crabs and stuff that you guys can get access to. So people talk about addressing bubble algae in a tank, and people are like, I'll get some emerald crabs. We cannot get them here.
No.
And some other things like cleaner shrimp, where in America they're relatively cheap. I mean, what's a red line cleaner shrimp in America sell for?
A local store, I'm going to say like maybe 25, 30 bucks.
Yeah, which is the equivalent of probably about $40 Australian, thereabouts. Our red line cleaner shrimp at the moment here are about $150, just because we don't have huge numbers of them. So they're obviously, less supply, a little bit harder to collect because we can't import them, a little bit harder to collect, so the price goes up. So I mean, it's a give and take. Some things we have, I know when I do my YouTube videos, and I have a pretty large audience from America, that when I do my store tours and I show people some of the corals for sale, we might have ridiculous sized SBS or even some of the LPS and soft corals, and people absolutely lose their mind over the price. It comes at a cost as well. Some things are cheap, some things are expensive.
Yeah, no, I guess. I mean, John Tolbert said that they're about $40 now, and maybe it's been a long time since I've actually bought a cleaner shrimp, just because knock on wood, I'm lucky enough that I get the stuff, and it just my tank is it's so stable that it just, I don't have to worry about it being dead or anything like that. So I haven't bought them, but $40, I remember when they were like 20, 15 bucks, and now they're 40. I mean, it's just, that is the sadness of the American market, is that at the same time, we're buying everything,
Well, that leads me on to the next difference between Australia and potentially America, is the money that's willing to be spent. We have a little bit of maybe angst or a little bit of muttering, I guess, from some Australian hobbyists, that some of our best corals end up overseas. And we see on American sites, or even in Europe, we see some of these incredible Australian corals, and we're like, how come we didn't get that? And I've met with so many divers and coral wholesalers, and at the end of the day, it purely comes down to the money is overseas. They will sell it to the Australian market, but people here won't pay for it, because we are so used to those aquapora colonies for $40 that are huge. If you come across a particular coral and it's beautiful, and they said, well, it might be a scully coral or something like that, and they're like, how come you sent that overseas? And they'll be like, because we would get $2,000 US for that. Would you pay $2,000 US for it? They're like, no, I'd pay about 300 Australian for it. And it's like, well, that's why we send it overseas.
That's why we send it overseas.
So despite having access to some of the best corals, a percentage of those best corals do go overseas. Realistically, though, if there is something that an Australian hobbyist is after, if you have a good relationship with your local fish shop and they talk to the coral wholesaler and you're willing to pay comparable price for it, you can get it. Which is a part that a lot of Australian hobbyists tend to forget. If you want something, they'll be able to get it for you, but you have to be willing to pay equal sort of money for it.
Yeah, you have to. If you're willing to pay US dollar, they'll sell it to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're paying US dollar price, then they'll sell it to you, because at the end of the day, yeah, I understand that, and it's true with a lot of industries. Latin America, in Europe, with food. Sometimes the best fruit goes to the highest payer, even though it is just it is a sadness of that we deal with it, because at the end of the day, it's still like a capitalistic world.
Yeah, there's also there's an economy of scale there, despite despite probably 90% of Australia living on the coastline. We're quite a big country, but we're populated all around the coastline, all the way around. And having things like the Great Barrier Reef there and access to such cheap corals, you would think a lot more Australian homes would have reef tanks. Where it seems like we are significantly, when you look at per capita in the number of fish tanks, we have much, much less fish tanks in homes in Australia than America does, or even other parts of the world. And then you combine the fact that America is, say, 20 times larger than Australia. So you have more per capita with fish tanks, and then you have 20 times the number of people. The market is just considerably bigger, which does then flow on to some other things. Some other dry goods and brands won't come to Australia because of it's a small market. It's on the other side of the world. It's a small market. Has its own barriers around electrical compliance and things like that, and the market's just not big enough.
Yeah, and that brings me to the next point that I was going to ask you about, the differences between, we talked about the livestock, but,
Yes.
I wanted to talk about the actual dry goods, the equipment. And you said that it actually is, everything is slower, it lags. So the American market and usually the European market get it first. And then eventually it trickles down to Australia at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're lucky with some things. I don't want to make it sound like it's all doom and gloom here. Some things will come straight to Australia, but some other smaller market items will need to. They'll need to recoup their research and development money first. They'll go to a safe market, whether it be America or Europe, where they know they can sell X number of units, recuperate their money, and then maybe, if we're lucky, if they're looking to expand further, they'll invest some of that money into electrical compliance for Australia, and then they'll sell a fraction of the units in Australia that they would anywhere else in the world. So again, through my YouTube channel and over the last couple of years, I've been super lucky to meet so many distributors, wholesalers, retailers, and it has been refreshing to hear the other side of the story. You get used to the hobbyist side of the story, saying we miss out. But when you speak to the people moving those cogs in the background, you can completely understand why. If some big brands have minimum order quantities that we would never sell in Australia. We just do not have enough hobbyists here, so it just economically does not make sense.
It's a smaller market.
Indeed,
it's a smaller market. That is that's amazing. But it does follow that rule where you're so close that you just take it. It's almost like, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to sound bad, but it's like you're so close to the barrier reef, you take it for granted. Like
we honestly do. Yeah, it's not quite the spectacle that you may see in other countries where it's an 8-hour drive to a beach. Where I am, I'm right down south, and I'm maybe like an hour and a half flight away from being on the Great Barrier Reef, and jumping on a boat and snorkeling and looking at the Barrier Reef corals and fish. So it's. It doesn't make it any less beautiful, but we absolutely do take it for granted. Yeah,
it's there. Here in Chicago, I have Sears Tower in this amazing city, and it's like everybody comes over, visitors, tourists, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's such a great city," and we're like, "Yeah, it's here. It's every day." Sometimes I don't even look up. I just go about my day. So
sure.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand how human nature is as well. All right.
Indeed.
So you are a let's talk about equipment, because at the end of the day, we want to talk about that tank in the back. I want to talk about
sure. Yeah, I haven't said out here for no reason. Yeah.
So your reef channel, which by the way, Parker's Reef, if you haven't subscribe to it, is amazing. You talk about equipment. You have Philips lights, Philips lights. So tell us about the equipment. How do you like it? With your equipment?
The Philips Coral Care light, something that I've followed right back from when I first got into the hobby. With the Gen 1 was out then. There's a good picture, and it was super exciting. It looked like it ticked all the boxes that I needed. It was very exciting to see a large lighting manufacturer do something for reef tanks. I mean, it's great when we've got reef companies producing lights, but again, it comes down to that economy of scale where they just might not have the research and development budget, or even just the access to the manufacturing lines and things like that. So when I saw a company like Philips, which my whole house is kitted out with Philips Hue lights, so I'm quite comfortable with the platform. When Philips came out with the first Coral Care, I was super excited, but it just never came to the Australian market. You could do some interesting imports through Europe and, deal with different plugs and things like that. But thankfully, when I started planning this Dream Reef tank behind me now, the Philips had announced it had been out, or they've been talking about it for a couple of months, and the Philips Coral Care 2 had came out. It was a further evolution on what they learnt from the Gen 1 light, which was, in my opinion, near perfection anyway. So they came out with some improvements on that, and then the best thing was I heard it was coming to Australia, and a good friend of mine, Ravi from Oz Aquariums, was bringing it in, which made things even better because it gave me access to a early prototype to be able to get my hands on and do a test. I had to give it back, unfortunately, but I was able to actually, rather than just look at pictures or videos online of the light, I was actually able to hold one and put it above a tank and see how it looked and test the par and things like that. And as a huge metal halide fan, my previous tank that I ran for 7 years, I put a lot of the success of that tank down to metal halide. I honestly thought I would never move away from metal halide, and I honestly did feel that way up until the moment that I turned on the Philips Coral Care, and I saw the spread was the main thing. You can get the color you want, you can get the par you want with almost any type of LED on the market, but the uniform spread, it was so metal halide-esque that I was sold from that moment. That's what absolutely sort of me was, just the fact that the really cool diffuser that they have on there, that it's not just, they don't just have 60-degree optics or something on every LED on the board that it just all do the same thing and supposedly blend. They've got this multi-layered diffuser plate with various optics built into it that here's a good shot of it here that you see my camera tries to sort of pick it up and then it doesn't. And I mean, there's some absolute black magic going on with that diffuser there that it just spreads the light to absolutely every corner in my tank and does it with such little power consumption that is incredible.
Yeah, you can see in the back, and obviously we're watching the video in there with the metal halides, and you have the LEDs on the side. I have them in my tank. There's two here running on. In America, we call them the Reef Brights. So they're kind of like the bar of blues that I have, just to add a little more blue to my tank. I'm not I would consider myself not the typical American user where they want blue, 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 and only blue. I'm more of an, I've been in the hobby since the late 90s. So metal halides, Iwasaki's, that yellow growth. It was a yellow coral with a bunch of T5s, with a bunch of VHOs or PCs to make it blue. But you would get this spread and this even layer of light that it would make the corals grow out instead of grow up.
Yeah, and you get that real natural growth pattern that, when you've got a tank that's been mature for a number of years and you've got some corals that have really grown in, that natural growth pattern takes it from a fish tank to a piece of the reef. You go from having, bits of coral stuck in a fish tank that are fairly obvious to having something that's completely grown in and the fish swim through those aquapora, and that's when you really have a reef tank. And I didn't think that would be possible with LED. I honestly thought that it was really only going to be possible with metal halide or even T5 until I got my hands on the Philips Coral Care. And then I went, full disclosure, I was looking for reasons to move on from metal halide because I personally like the radium 20,000 Kelvin bulbs. And again, economies of scale, Australia, very difficult to get hold of at the moment. And it seems like every time I replaced my bulbs, it was more and more difficult. And I got to the point of planning this tank behind me here that I want to have running for 10 to 15 years, maybe more, who knows. I started getting nervous about how am I going to go tracking down these bulbs that I've built the foundations of my tank around in, well, forget 10 years time, even 2 years or 5 years time. Am I still going to be able to get the bulbs? So that concerned me. Plus, you know, you increase the size of your tank, you increase the amount of equipment. I would have been running probably 400 watt halides over that tank with some LED supplement. That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of heat, a lot of power.
It's a lot of heat, a lot of power. And I mean, where I am in Australia, we get, you know, 40-degree days here fairly often, which is probably a bit over 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
So you then put, you know, 400 watt metal halides above the tank as well. The heat just amplifies, but also the electricity costs, which you know, you get the bill every 4 months or 3 months, and you kind of hope that you're the one that opens it before your partner opens it and goes, "This bill's huge. Do you have to run that many lights on your tank?" And you go, "Yeah, I do." So I could foresee some issues with the metal halide on this tank here in the heat, the power, and realistically, the most important thing for me was the bulb availability. That was what made me nervous the most. So yeah, getting my hands onto and I can open up. I mean, if anyone's seen my channel, I've got the hood automated so we can open the tank up and you can see
yes. I was gonna get to that, but before we get to that part, and now, you know, let's not give it away right away.
Sure. All right, I'll close back up then.
No, you know, I wanted to ask you a thing, because obviously you have experience with the Generation 1, and you now seen the Generation 2. At least you've seen it, right?
I've seen them, yeah. I haven't actually been able to hold them and test them personally myself, but I followed the details of the Generation 1 very, very closely, and was about that close to importing a bunch of them from Europe at the time. But the local support and experience with them, which was non-existent at the time, made me nervous to put in that sort of investment in the lights. So once the local support came in for the Generation 2, I was on board.
Now, so based on your research, what have you found that is the difference between Generation 1 and Generation 2? What are the upgrades that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely minimal upgrades. It's not like they've completely changed everything from what I've seen. We moved to a slimmer fixture, which doesn't bother me so much up in a hood like that's built in, but it's nice. We drop a little bit of power usage. They've found some further efficiencies there, which was already off the charts. But to get further improvements on power usage, I mean, it is a testament of a large company like Philips that are able to just continually chip away and evolve at these things. But probably the thing that they needed most, that probably put them behind the market at the time, there was its connectivity. So with the Gen 2 lights, you've got your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, which, I mean, realistically, I personally think it's a non-event. I mean, you're not changing your lights every day. You set the schedule up and it's realistically fine. You're done. If you're playing with your schedule more than once a year, you're playing with it too much. But on the spec sheet, it didn't look good for Gen 1 when all of their competitors have got all these fancy apps and this and that, and they still had a physical connection. It did make them look worse. So they've come to the party, and now you've got an app on computer, iPhone, Android. You've got Wi-Fi connectivity, Bluetooth connectivity. Again, I don't actually feel you need it, but it's a good addition.
Good. Yeah, I mean, there's been talk about the Generation 1 being better than the Generation 2. And at the end of the day, the Generation 1 was a few years ago. You know, last time I checked, you know, a PC that was developed in 2012, who has a working PC that is in 2012 that is not for your kids, that is actually for doing work? You know, nobody. You know, so it's using less power because it's more efficient. It's like, you know, it's not a gas guzzler. It's not a 1950s Cadillac. It's a 2020, you know, hybrid. You know, you can't compare the two. So, you know, I wanted to make that clear that, you know, the Generation 1 is great, but the Generation 2 is just as good. Just because it's using less power doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's more efficient. It's newer. You're expecting it to be that way.
It's a common thing I face. I mean, when I told people, and I showed them a video that I'm running the Philips Coral Care, they all went, "Oh, yeah, they're not very strong because they're only 170 watts each." And I'm like, you're looking at how much power it uses to determine how much oomph it puts out.
which is
they're
not.
not a direct correlation. There are efficiencies to be had there, and the example you used with the old Cadillac is exactly the same. You can't look at the petrol consumption of a car and decide that that's how much power it's going to make, or how fast it goes. It's the two. I mean, there's some loose connections there, but there's this thing called science and development that
Yes.
has moved us well beyond that.
If you guys, anybody that watching the show right here, if you guys want to learn about lighting, we actually, a previous show that we did a show with Tulio from Reef Light, and he's a reef, a lighting expert to begin with. I mean, lighting is his forte, and watch it because you will learn a lot. We go over par, per, we go over light distribution, we go over spectrum, and how everything together, and it's amazing how many myths are there, how many mistruths or you know, I hate to use, you know, how many misinformation is about light and wattage, and it's almost like wattage is a marketing ploy. Because it almost has nothing to do with the actual light itself. Yeah.
Imagine if you were selling a computer. Imagine you worked at a retail store and you're selling computers, and the number one thing you said about a computer was, this one uses the most power.
Yeah.
And somehow that makes it the better computer.
Exactly.
It just, yet that's how we assess our lights, and people still view it that way. It just makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yes,
exactly. It's bizarre.
And we'll go over that because we're going to talk a lot. We're going to talk. You are a big technology guy like myself.
Yeah.
We're going to have a little conversation about technology and how people, you know, the 1560. What's it? The 1570 and 15 market. You know, we talk a little about that.
The early adopters and people that are never going to change. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. But you know what? Let's talk about let's talk about that big reef tank in the back. What size is it? And why are you starting a new tank? I mean, you were the Reef of the Month for Reef to Reef on March 19th. You had a tank that is almost perfection. Look at this tank from the beginning at the top all the way to the bottom. Look at that tank. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a piece of art. I could, you know, make it a puzzle if I wanted to. You know, and the metal halides are on top. I can see the two metal halides with a little bit with some LEDs in there. It's just an absolutely beautiful tank. Why a new tank? What happened to that old tank?
Yeah, look, there was nothing wrong with that tank. It had reached 7 years old. That progression photo there, that was really for the first 3 years, I think. And then the last picture, I think, was maybe about 5 years in, that single one that showed the metal halides. And realistically, that was my first, I don't want to say first reef tank, because it wasn't. I had a reef tank before that, but it was my first big reef tank. It was the first one that I'd actually had half an idea of what I was doing and wanted to really achieve success with it. And it did everything I wanted to do. It was wonderful. It grew out. I had that beautiful green staghorn in there, which we call, ironically in Australia, we call Dallas. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the American state Dallas, but city Dallas. But it was it had grown into everything I wanted to do. It had become stationary, I guess, in that it had grown out, it had filled out, the tank had achieved everything I wanted. All I could really do from it there was to trim coral back and enjoy it by all means, which I did for a couple of years. But thankfully, throughout my time in the hobby, and the hobby itself had changed so much in those 7 years as well, but absolutely my knowledge through meeting people and talking with people and getting around this country and seeing different reef tanks and different approaches, I'd learned quite a lot, and there was a whole heap of things that I wanted to change, and I wanted to challenge myself and take on something new. So my tank was 7 years old. It realistically probably would have gone another 3 to 5 years before I was testing fate a little bit on the stand and the seams of the glass. But I wanted a new challenge, so I sold that one up. I broke it down, which was documented on my YouTube channel. I sold all the coral out of it. I haven't kept a single piece of coral from that tank. I have kept the fish, but everyone asked me if I was keeping frags of all the corals, to which I responded, I don't want to grow the same tank. The idea of shutting that tank down was to do a different tank. and to incorporate all the things I've learned over the last 7 years and to see if I could do it better. I'm not going to profess that I will do it better or that it's a certainty or anything. It's still a learning experience for me, and I think that's what the draw to this hobby is there's always something new to learn. But yeah, the tank that sits behind me now is the beginnings. It's only been wet now for 4 weeks. It's basically just completed its cycle, but it's the culmination of all the things I've learned and all the adaptations of technology and improvements there. So it's my new challenge for the next 10 years, basically.
You are, you know what? I was talking to my producer, and you know, we're talking about the tank, and it was beautiful for 7 years, and now you have a new tank, and I'm like, you know, I think you and I are similar. We are tinkerers.
Of course.
We are tinkerers, which means that the moment the tank stabilizes and then I'm no longer needed, it's the moment I lose interest. And then it's like, okay, I'm done. Let me start again, change things. So I have to tinker. It's kind of like that person that in the it's like the muscle head, the person, the gearhead that is always playing, always playing with, always tinkering with a car, always tinkering with a car. So you and I are kind of like similar spirits in that we're tinkerers.
Indeed. And look, in full respect to that tank, I didn't want to tinker with it too much. I mean, it was beautiful. It was a stunning reef tank, and I didn't want to risk the well-being of all the animals in that tank by tinkering with it too much. So it had run its time, and I guess the other driver behind it was my wife had been very patiently waiting to renovate this room. We wanted new floors and some things like that. So it's pretty difficult to replace the floors when you've got a 1.5 to 2 ton tank sitting on them. So when I mentioned to her that I was thinking about breaking that tank down and upgrading to a new tank, she was like, "So we can do the floors?" So as soon as I'd had that conversation, things started moving a bit quicker then, because she'd already picked out some floors that she wanted to put in. So you know, we moved forward there. So
you were done. There was no backing out of that one. You signed a contract. You sold.
Exactly. Right. Look, I mean, in many ways, it was a sly move on my behalf in that it then had my wife is incredible. She's fully supportive of all of my reef adventures, but it actually had her hassling me on when I would be upgrading the tank because she wanted to get onto the floors. So it was clever in that sense, in that she was then pushing me to make this upgrade happen sooner rather than later.
That's crazy. That's yeah. You know, happy wife, happy life at the end of the
day. Absolutely.
So I just want to take some time right here before we continue. Say thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for watching us. Please, if you like the channel, if you like the host, not the host. Well, you like the host. Come on.
Of course we like the host.
Yeah. No. If you like the guest, and you like the conversation, please just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and you will be notified right away when we have a live stream. Obviously, we send out emails, we put it on Facebook, but if you're a busy person and can't make it, so you'll by subscribing, you'll get that little pop-up that says CoralVue is live right now. Tap in it. Maybe you're not able to watch, but you can sneak in some earpods and listen to it. That'd be great. Also, make sure that you sign up and subscribe to Parker's Reef and watch the videos. There is, like he said, there's a video of his old tank. There's a video, he did a whole various series on tearing down the tank. And now he's taking us on a huge journey to his new tank. So you got the coral cares and there. I know you're an Abyss fan. I love
Abyss. My family ran a pump business for about 25 years. Not so much aquarium pumps, but more industrial and commercial pumps. So I mean, I have experience and I have an eye for a high quality pump. And as soon as I experienced an Abyss pump, man, I was sold. I know they're not the cheapest thing under the sun, and it's not something I'd recommend for every reefer out there. But when you get to the point of having an excessive amount of value worth of coral and fish in your tank, it absolutely blows my mind the number of people that trust or put the tiniest little insure or safety net under that with like $100 return pump. They might have $50,000 worth of fish and coral, and they're running it off $100 return pump. And it just blows my mind. I'm like, man, I'm not saying you should mortgage your house to buy a return pump, but can you just spec it up a little bit? I mean, it's everything in this hobby is a calculated risk,
Yes.
and that's just a calculated risk that I think is worth spending a little bit of money on. And as far as I can see, for the hobby grade, and even dipping into commercial with some of the larger units, there is nothing that gets close to a Biz. And I say that comfortably, having spent quite a lot of time. Granted, I didn't work at the family pump business, but I did frequent there quite often. And I've seen good pumps and I've seen bad pumps, and a Biz is as good as they come.
Yes, they are. And Alex is a fantastic guy. He's a good friend of CoralVue. We've actually done shows. We did he gave us a cooking lesson. Yes, actually, our CoralVue's live show, the second live show, was Alex teaching us how to cook venison and some German schnitzel.
Yeah, schnitzels. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. We had a contest and everything. It was actually a lot of fun.
Or as Australians call them, schnitties.
Oh, see, again.
Just because the word schnitzel is too long.
What was Australian? Was the English developed at the time the telegraph were going on? Because it sounds like, it's like you pay for the letter.
That's it. Keeps those text messages short and sweet.
Morse code and Australian slang go together. So Abiz, I know you're also a fan of Aquarist.
Yeah, Aquarist. I do a lot with Aquarist. I got to meet. I ran a expo in Australia this year. Actually, so lucky we got it in about 2 weeks before coronavirus lockdowns, which would have pretty much. I had a lot of time and money invested in that expo. It was. We built it to be Australia's largest aquarium expo, which was both saltwater and freshwater. It was called Underwater Pet Expo, happened in Melbourne in March this year. And I've talked with and communicated with Serwin from Aquarist many times, and we were able to get him out to the show here in Australia. So I got to have a sit down and a chat with him and just get to meet the guy. And it just further cemented that it's great to deal, whether you're just a consumer, whether you're just buying their products, or whether you're working with them on another level, or whatever your involvement with them is. Whenever you deal with a company that is so passionate about what they do, it shines through all of their products. And that's something that I can wholeheartedly say about Aquarist, is that Serwin and the entire team, Deborah as well. I deal a bit with Deborah from Aquarist, and they absolutely live and breathe it, and that's the type of people that I love to surround myself with, because everyone's motivation just drives everyone further and further. And I can't say enough about Aquarist. They're a wonderful company. Yeah,
Severin is it's an amazing person. He's also been on our channel introducing the tanks and everything. And my tank actually runs an Aquarist.
Nice.
It runs an Aquarist. That's the only way I can get the colors that I get on the tank. Colors and growth, and I run a calcium reactor as well, so it makes my life easier. Now, Aquarist, I know everybody, Aquarist actually does make chemicals and supplements for people with calcium reactor. It's not just balling method. There's actually there's components 1, 2, and components A, B, and C. Components A, B, and C, and A, B, and C are supplements to a calcium reactor. They're different from 1, 2, 3, because they don't have, A, B, and C does not have the alkalinity, the carbonate compound in there, and it doesn't have the calcium as well. So they take those out, leave everything else in there, and then you dose it into your tank along with your calcium reactor. And trust me, your tank will never look better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You are also a fan of Kamoa.
Yeah, Kamoa, another a distributor in Australia that I deal a lot with. We've worked together on a few things, and one of the brands he brings is Kamoa. And realistically, from a hobbyist level dosing pump, nothing touches Kamoa. I mean, they come with the medical industry background. Obviously, when you buy a Kamoa dosing pump for your aquarium, you're not paying multiple thousands of dollars for a medical grade pump. But I mean, they have that heritage and that knowledge and that engineering behind them, and they bring it into an affordable hobby grade pump and bring it to the market. So yeah, I've had really good experience with Kamoa. I'm running the X4 Pro on this tank. Well, it's set up, but it's not dosing anything yet because it's literally just finished cycling. But I've got that there for some trace element supplements. I used one of the X1 pumps for doing a slow dose of some just a little bit of ammonia and a bacteria source to help get this tank cycled. And their FXSTP2, which is quite a mouthful, but that continuous duty pump, man, there's nothing like that in the market. Again, my family have a pump business, and I'd go in there and see these beautiful continuous duty peristaltic pumps and be like, oh yes, I need that. And they're like, yeah, it's $12,000. And I go, ooh, I don't need that.
I don't need that. Not that much.
But then Kamoa released something just as good for our needs anyway. I mean, it doesn't need to handle some of the chemicals that the medical dosing ones we're using, but as good, if not better, for our needs, and charge a couple of $100 for it. Like, you're kidding me. That's the sort of evolution that we've seen in the hobby, where it was only a few years ago people were like scouring eBay trying to find end of life medical continuous duty pumps, and then trying to source spare parts or refurbish them so that they were somewhat trustable. And that was considered the gold standard in the hobby. Now, like, I can walk into my local fish shop and hand over a couple $100 and take one off the shelf, and it's good to go. I can get support, I can get spare parts. Like, it's game changing.
Yeah, I mean, I just like you, I have an F4 Pro in here, also taking care of my Aquarist and some amino acids, and then I also have an FXSTP Wi-Fi also, which takes care of my Kaltwasser, because I do a little bit of both. I've been doing this since the late 90s, so call me old school. There's something
nothing wrong with old school.
There's something to be said about Kaltwasser in corals and coralline. They just absolutely love it.
And Kaltwasser is something that one of the new things I will be doing, or I say new to me, that I will be doing on this tank behind me. I've ran calcium reactors pretty much my entire reefing time and had great success with them. But the challenge of calcium, particularly when your tank's really consuming a lot of media and you're putting a lot of CO2 into that reactor, you then start to run in trouble with the pH. So I'm looking at Kaltwasser to offset that. And that's something that I'm excited to try in this new tank.
Absolutely. And you know what, Kaltwassers right now, Kaltwassers have a bad rap. And I think the reason why they have a bad rap is not because of the Kaltwasser itself. It's because they're hard to set up, and there's nothing out there up until now that makes Kaltwassers easy. And I mean, I'm not, obviously this is CoralVue, so we have this new product called Hydros Control, but we do make on the control, we make it so easy to set up a calcium reactor. You tell it where the pH probe is and tell it what, and here's my pH. Tell it what the alkalinity probe or the alkalinity input in is, and it'll do the math for you. You don't have to write lines of code and make sure that one line is above the other line but not below the other line, because the hierarchy, the lower lines are higher than the upper lines. It's like, you know what? It's like, at the end of the day, last time I checked, I don't have a representative from that company sitting, at my back and call that I can ask him, did I write this right or not? I shouldn't have to. It should all be done by the WYSIWYG. And we're technical people, so the technology is there to make it easy now. It shouldn't be this hard. And I think
you're spot on there in that the Kaltwasser itself hasn't changed.
Yes.
It's the infrastructure around it that has made it something that was a bit risky. And we talked about calculated risks before. It was a bit risky, and the equipment to use to dose Kaltwasser and to keep solutions saturated and things were probably suboptimal, if I be kind. Where now things like FXSTP2, Hydros controller, and some of the even things like your ASCAP calc corrector that have that nice stir bar down the bottom, the infrastructure's come around it to bring it back into the absolute hitting zone for reef tanks, where it just ticks all of the boxes of things that we need to maintain these good reef tanks. And all of those cons or shortcomings that were issued 10 years ago have now been addressed through technology. So it's got to come back into fashion. It's where it's at.
I think so. It's just, you just need something that puts it all together and intuitively it makes it easy for the kids, because at the end of the day, not that it's hard because it's easy. But at the end of the day, two-part is great up until a point.
Yeah.
Once that tank starts taking off, then it is just economically is not feasible to do two-part anymore. You have to switch over to a calcium reactor, because otherwise you will just be burning through money, in liquid.
And that's hard on dosing pumps and things too. If you start talking, you're dosing, multiple hundreds of milliliters of fluids a day, every day. It's hard work on a dosing pump. So you're building in a weak point there, and as soon as one of those pumps fails or loses prime or something happens, you can see one of your elements drop, and you're into trouble. Where
exactly.
I know the calcium reactors, which I'm a huge advocate of, I know that they have their complications. Don't get me wrong; they can be difficult to explain to someone just entering the hobby as to how they work and how you tune them. Once you get it set up and running, they are so simple, particularly with these easily tunable continuous duty pumps now. You need a little bit more alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, put an extra few mil per hour or minute in the dosing pump, and you're off and running.
Exactly.
It's once you get over that initial learning curve, they're very simple.
My calcium reactor is there, and I always say, it's like, what is it? About a month ago, I changed the media in there. But besides that, since January of 2020, I had not even bled the calcium reactor. There was there's no cavitation at the top, CO2. People call it air, but it's not air. It's CO2, carbon dioxide. It's CO2, because you're injecting too much carbon dioxide, and it's all at the end of the day, calcium reactor is just a matter of pressures.
Yes.
The pressure, the PSI coming from the CO2 tank has to be the same as the PSI going into the tank. Once you have that balance, everything is going to be pretty easy. The bubble is going to be very constant, and it will be pretty much hands-free. I mean, I don't have to deal with my calcium reactor at all.
Yeah. And there's some other things too. I mean, a few years ago when we had to deal with some of the non-suitable regulators on gas bottles, where it'd be just the tiniest adjustment and you'd go from 1 bubble a second to 30 bubbles a second. Some technology's come a long way there now, where I run carbon doser regulators, which I'm a big fan of. They're not cheap again, but geez, they make life so easy. Like, I just go in and turn that dial, and it'll just deliver an extra bubble a second. Like, it's beautiful.
Absolutely, but even then, I mean, it's all a matter of pressures. If you have this cylinder, and you have this huge pump, you got an Abyss 400 pushing water into calcium reactor. Trust me, you open that CO2 regulator, and you're not going to be able to inject any, because the pressure is too high. It's a matter of pressures. If you're injecting 1 psi, technically inside the chamber, you should have 1 psi as well. Yes. So that's one of the things that people tend to forget. All right, so let's talk about the old tank real quick, because it was beautiful, and I know people want to know about this. All right,
by all means,
alkalinity.
Trip down memory lane.
What alkalinity range were you using on that tank?
Yeah, I tend to run most of my tanks a little bit lower in the alkalinity range to what is popular with most people these days. I like to run around about 7.5 kH of 7.5, maybe up to 8. Personally, I found, and it probably because of the tank in the growth was not an issue after the first, say, maybe 3 years. I think the benefits that people get by going higher in alkalinity to try and accelerate growth. Personally, I wasn't chasing accelerated growth. I was chasing color, and I felt like it was a trade-off. You get accelerated growth at the cost of color.
Yes.
I found the lower within reason, of course, the alkalinity, I got much more vibrant colors. So once the tank was absolutely full, there was no need for me to be running alkalinity at 10 or 12 kH or anything like that. I kept it down closer to 7.5, and just had the colors absolutely singing.
That's fantastic. I run mine at 8, so pretty close. What about talking about colors? Full disclosure, it's not just alkalinity. You're talking about phosphates and nitrates too, which they go together. What were your phosphates and nitrates on that tank?
Sure. So it was a full mixed reef. So, I mean, it wasn't just SBS dominated. So I needed to keep, I know there's different beliefs or opinions on phosphates and nitrate levels for SBS and LPS and things like that. But I ran nitrates around, I tried to keep them between 2 and 5 ppm. Okay. And phosphates, I tried to keep between 0.04 and 0.08. So I always like to just have a little bit in there. I feel like you don't want to run anything too sterile, obviously. And being a mixed reef, I like to keep enough sort of enough meat on the bone, I guess, for some of the LPS corals there. And I must admit, my opinion on phosphates and nitrates changed drastically after visiting a number of reefers' tanks. Some of the absolute nicest display tanks I've ever seen in my life would have nitrates that would be off the charts on our hobbyist grade test kits, or phosphates. Like if you had the Hannah checker and you put like the reagent in it to turn instantly blue, like that. And if they sent you a message, like if you asked them what their nitrate and phosphate was, and they told you, you wouldn't believe it. You think they're lying, but you can go and test their water, and you go, yeah, right, okay, things can survive there. So, I mean, I think with most things with these reef tanks, stability is the most important thing. And stability, balance. But yeah, personally, I ran sulfur reactors on my last tank, or a sulfur reactor, which was just a calcium reactor that had no gas in it, and obviously ran sulfur beads. That kept my nitrates well and truly in check. I'm a big fan of those. It's another old school approach, but I was pretty much able to dial my nitrate wherever I wanted it. I could turn it up or down, and it really worked a treat for me.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think I've learned over the last few years that it's it's not the level, it's the balance.
Absolutely.
The right balance of phosphates to nitrates. It has to be a correct ratio. I think it's 1 of phosphates and about 50 to 100 of nitrates. Whatever it is, but it has to be that ratio.
That balance, yeah.
My phosphates at 0.8 and my nitrates somewhere between 5 and 10.
Yes.
Just like you. I'm a true believer that if you're going to take the nitrates and phosphates out, you have to replace them with something else. You're putting your corals in a strict diet, and this is what some people miss. And I think it's one thing that I want to hone in, is that it's not just about removing the nitrates, not about removing the phosphates, because that's not going to give you the colors. It's what you put after you remove the nitrates and you remove the phosphates that is the secret sauce. It's putting the aquaphor stuff. It's giving technically what you're doing is you're putting your corals in a strict diet, but just like a human body, if you starve them, they're going to die. So if you put them on a diet, you got to give them something that is nutritious, And
I'm a big fan of what I classify a high energy reef, where I like to put a lot of supplement, or a lot of amino, a lot of organics. I like to put a lot of things in the tank and then take a lot of things out of the tank as well. And including with light, I like to put a lot of light, a lot of aminos, a lot of fish food. I like to give them everything they need, but then pull it back out, which can be a more difficult way of going about it. Because I mean, you're putting a lot of things in and taking a lot of things out, but
exactly.
They're not swimming in nitrates and phosphates. They're not drowning in amino acids. You're not sparing on algae, but you have it there available for the corals should they want it, and they will take it.
Exactly. So I'm assuming calcium is a standard around 4 to 450, something like that.
Yeah, to be honest, my calcium tended to run a little bit lower. It wasn't really a deliberate thing. I normally aimed for 440, but it tended to hover around 420. Okay. When I tried to sort of bump it up, I didn't always see the best results. So I mean, whether it was just my testing or something that was out, 420 was the sweet spot. So I tended not to rock the boat too much there.
Okay. And then magnesium, I'm guessing around 1500, 14.
Yeah, magnesium is an interesting one. For the first few years of my tank, I had 2 large clams in the tank, and I'm putting this down to the clams because after they spawned and then eventually passed away, my magnesium issues were resolved. But for the first 3 or 4 years of running that tank, no matter how much magnesium I supplemented the tank with, I just could not get it up above 1250. There was just stripping it out to the point where my calcium reactor, I know people will run magnesium supplement in their calcium reactors, and normally it's like maybe a tenth of the media will be magnesium, or maybe at most an eighth. I was running 50-50 magnesium supplement to and still could not get, as well as then dosing magnesium liquid supplement on top, still could not get my magnesium up over 1250. As soon as I had 2 large clams, sort of, I was going to say the size, oh yeah, well, you guys have got footballs, size of a football each, maybe a bit bigger. And on one day they both spawned, and then they just slowly sort of wasted away over about 8 months after that big spawning. once they were out of the tank, I had to pull the media out of my calcium reactor and stop
You were
dosing.
driving it up.
Magnesium, yeah, the magnesium just. So, I mean, they were consuming magnesium. Yeah.
All right. So magnesium, we covered that. pH. I mean, I'm not one person that chases pH. If you ask me, sometimes my tank is around 7.75, and sometimes it's at 8. Living in Chicago with the cold winter and all that, if I can get above 8.10, I'm going to be really happy. But it usually doesn't happen. What about you?
Yeah, I found that tank to be fairly low in pH as well, probably due to the calcium reactor and the huge amount, like when it was growing at its peak, the amount of CO2 that I was putting into that reactor. So the calcium reactor and the sulfur reactor tend to keep the pH fairly low. So, I mean, it ran around 7.8, 7.9, which realistically I shouldn't be bothered with because the tank grew incredibly. I know people say higher pH, quicker growth, better coloration and stuff. I can't say... It could have been quicker and better if it was higher. I don't know, but that is something with this new tank that I am having a real effort in trying to see if I can challenge myself to get higher pH, and hence the talk of Kalkwasser there of just trying some different approaches, running a refugium on this tank as well, just to try and bleed off some of that excess CO2. So yeah, it's something of this tank I'm looking to lift up into the 8.3, 8.4 region. Yeah,
moral of the stories, guys, is like don't chase a single number. Because a single variable doesn't make the entire tank. It's a combination of what, and it's a give and take. It's like you said, it's a give and take. You want the growth, you have to give up the color. You want the color, you have to give up the growth. I mean, at the end of the day, there's you can't have what you want, because it's just you cannot have it all.
Yeah. I mean, we all try.
Life is a balance. Life is a balance.
Indeed.
Exactly. All right. So now the cool thing, I want to see this tank.
Sure, yeah.
Because Dave, our boss here, the owner of CoralVue, he loves this setup and he wants that setup at home. So at the office. So if he could grab it and move it to Slidell in Louisiana, he would. He would.
I mean, it wouldn't be too hard. I was fortunate enough that when I was selling the coral out of my existing tank, one of the people that came to buy some corals from that tank was a kitchen designer and builder, and we got talking about the cabinetry from a new tank, and he's like, "Oh, we can do some cool things with some servo drives for the doors and stuff," and then I got thinking about how can I then motorize my light frame. So, I mean, I started looking around. A fairly popular or common approach, at least in Australia, is to use large motorized blind motors that you then mount up in your ceiling, and you have the cables coming through the ceiling, which will then your light rack will mount to. But because it just wasn't as simple as it seemed. People are like, yeah, you just buy one of those motors and mount it on the roof and off you go. So I wasn't happy with that solution. I didn't want cables coming through my ceiling and potentially saw it because I wanted to run these coral cares. And I mean, you will know they're not lightweights. They're quite heavy, and I wanted to mount a few of them up there. So I was going to need a strong motor and all these things. And I remember I was just scratching my head one day, and I thought, I just need something like this sit-stand desk that I'm sitting at, where I can just press a button and it just raises up, and that can hold 80 kilos, and it's nice and quiet, and it moves smoothly. It's not expensive. And then I went, so why don't I just use a sit-stand desk?
The light bulb just went out, right?
Exactly. So instead of mounting the desktop to it, I just mounted some 80-20 extrusion, and then I can mount all my lights to that. So now I've got a light frame that can motorize up and down. It's nice, and it was super affordable for things in this hobby. It was a couple $100 to get the motorized parts there. It's fairly adaptable. It's easy to bolt to. It mounted on the back of my tank, so I didn't have to run things up through the ceiling, or risk putting all of these kilos of things mounted from like the above the plaster. So yeah, I mean, it worked out really well. And then like I said, the cabinet maker hooked me up with some motorized doors, so I can open the tank up there, and and I've got the side door will go. Oh, sorry, that side. Oh, it is that side.
Jeremy, you need to get that, man. Jeremy's our graphic designer and does all the artwork for our TV shows and everything. And he would love something like that. And now our producer has a video of everybody that is going to show of the video of the lights going up and down. I hope she can put it on there. But technically, it's just a desk frame that goes up and down. So there you go. So everybody look at that. and it's just a button that you press and automatically takes the legs in the back. You can see the vertical legs in the back, and that's what it does. It just goes up and down.
Yeah, the best thing about it is that the sit stand desk controller, because they're designed to have, like to be a hot desk and have multiple people walk up and sit or stand at the desk. It also has presets saved into it.
Yes.
So I can set my lowest level, my highest level, and then a couple in between, and it's got those 4 memory settings as well as manual adjustments. So I basically only use 2 of the settings. I have, or 3, I guess. I have my lowest setting. So if I want to work on the lights, I lower it down so that it's just above the water surface and the lights are right there at arm's reach. I have the setting where I run the lights about 6 to 7 inches above the water, and then I have where they are now, which is pretty well all the way up. If I want to access the tank, so when we're putting like the Aquascape in, just press a button, lifts right up to the ceiling, and then I literally have nothing in the way of the tank. I've got complete access to it.
That is awesome. Now, my question in the back is because it's a desk, so those legs are only yay high.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
How did you attach them to the back of the tank, or is it to the wall, or how did you do it? Because they don't go all the way down to the floor.
No, they don't go all the way down. So what I did is I just got some fairly heavy duty steel rectangular section. So just basically rectangular pipe. And I had that galvanized. So I had that built up. So that pipe actually comes a fair way up the back of the tank.
Okay.
Because my frame for this tank is all 80-20 extruded aluminium, so I was able to just bolt those to the they do sit down on the ground just for weight bearing, but they're held to the back of the tank through bolted to the frame, and then I just have some I guess they're pretty large. They're about probably 3/4 inch bolts through that tube, and then the motors just sit down onto that bolt. People have said, oh, that's going to be a pain to get those motors out if you have trouble with them. Things in this hobby, you've got salt water and moisture and things like that. They're not going to last forever. Realistically, if they last for 5 years, how are you going to get them out without draining your tank? They literally just lift out.
That is super clever. I mean, I it's one of those things that you look at it, you look at it and you're like, huh.
It's amazingly simple.
And
then the 80-20 light frame just bolts to that. So I mean, there's 4 bolts that hold all of that to the motors. So I can undo those 4 bolts, take the lights off, and then the motors are individual each. So I can lift one motor out. They're only a few kilos each, so I can lift one of them out, put another one in if I need to. But we've done all we can to, saltwater moisture proof those tanks. Those motors, sorry.
Yeah, that's clever. All I can say is it's genius, because it makes sense. It looks slick. It looks good. I mean, in the tank, I call it's wife approved, because it looks like it's part of the furniture. It's part of the room. It's not like this eyesore that is in the middle of the room. That's what wives hate the most.
Look, and it's not just wives, it's myself. I'm a huge believer of, as good as your tank can look, as good as the fish and corals can look inside that glass box of water, if it looks like a science experiment around it, people will tell you that it doesn't bother them, but I think subconsciously it does. It takes your eye away from the beauty that's within the tank. If it's nicely built in and it flows with the house, it just takes things to another level. Yes. And I didn't call this my Dream Reef tank for nothing. This is, it's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a heap of money to get where I wanted it to. But it's something that I didn't just put together on a whim. It's something we planned and saved for quite some time. So, I agree. You've got to have that wife appeal. Absolutely. And this tank, like I said, we didn't just pop it together in a weekend. It's something that we've had 3D models of, from every single component, from the span and the position in the house, to where the sump's going to go, to how much room we're going to have from the hallway door to the window on the side here, to where the light frame will fit. Every single component of it's been planned in utmost detail, and it's something that I have shared that journey on my YouTube channel, and I've been completely upfront and honest with every single step, including how much money I've spent on every single component, mistakes I've made, things that have gone better than planned, and it seems to be getting a lot of traction. People are really appreciating the brutal honesty of what it takes to get this Dream Reef tank happening.
Exactly. So make sure you subscribe to the channel Parker's Reef. He's got plenty of videos and everything. And you know, I know we're already at 2 hours on this show already. It's crazy, you know, and we're just chatting about things. I just want to touch lightly. You're a heck of a photographer. I mean,
Yeah.
you are a heck of a photographer. I mean, I'm going to have my producer, April, just show some pictures in here. And I'm almost like tempted to ask you, it's like, you know, can you come back and give us a workshop or some tips on how to take pictures? Because look at the pictures, guys. Look at those pictures. I mean, they're beautiful. And based on what I hear, you have a nice, I mean, obviously photography is one of the most expensive hobbies there are. I know that for a fact.
It can be.
It can be, but you're not breaking the bank on the lens. You're not breaking the bank on the camera. You have some tips in there that can give us and share with us, or maybe come back later on a different day and share tips on how to take pictures. Because I think this is one of the things that everybody wants to do, but hardly anybody can do it right.
It's one of those things where, I mean, you put so much effort and passion and pride into your fish tank. You want to be able to show the world, and it can be really difficult when you pick up your smartphone and you try to take a picture and you get this blue wash.
I know exactly.
And it looks like an 80s nightclub. It doesn't look great. So full disclosure, I mean, I have no photography background. I only got into photography through the Reef Aquarium. Once I had my previous tank running for about a year, and I was trying to take some pictures and show people, and I got sick of doing it with my phone. So I started looking at places like Reef to Reef and looking at people's pictures that I thought were good, and then asking them questions. And then I thought, well, I'll buy a secondhand camera and a lens and have it, play with it and practice, and sort of taught myself a few tips and tricks. And it's funny how these things go, because now I get to the point where I'm able to then help other people in that same position. And I'm proud to say that I've never had a brand new camera. I've always bought secondhand. My kit, my photography kit, was growing to now do things with the YouTube channel. So we've got full photography and videography, but every single item in there is secondhand, and it's not cost a lot of money. And I mean, photography, as you said, it's an expensive hobby, and it's a little bit similar to reef keeping in that there's a good percentage of the population that will tell you, unless you spend the utmost amazing amount of money, you're not going to get good results when it's so far from the truth. You can pick up I was going to say a $300 camera, but probably in American dollars, maybe a $200 camera and a lens, and you can get great shots. Sure, you can get maybe 2 or 3% better if you spend 10 times that money, but it's the scale's not linear. The more money you spend, the pictures only get a tiny bit better.
So what camera are you using? What lens? And at the end of the day, guys, any photographer will tell you that it's not the camera, it's the lens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The lens is what. So if you want to ask, if you ever talk to a photographer, you ask, the first question you ask is, what lens are you using? Because if you ask the camera, you're asking the wrong question. But yes, so what lens and what camera are you using? Sure.
So the lens I use probably 95% of the time in, probably with everything, but definitely in the aquarium industry is I use the Canon 100mm f2.8L macro, which the fact that I said that it's L lens means that it's one of Canon's premium lenses. Yet, ironically, the 100mm macro is probably their cheapest premium lens, because it is just one length. It's not a zoom lens, so it's actually it's not a heavy piece of glass. It's fairly cheap. In Australia, it's about $1,000, which is probably about $750 US brand new. Obviously, you can buy them secondhand a lot cheaper than that. Yes. And I must admit, I didn't get that lens until maybe 2 or 3 years into my photography journey. I was dealing with what they call a Nifty 50, which is their absolute cheapest lens. It's a little plastic body lens that goes on a Canon. Even brand new, they're about $100 in Australia. Secondhand, people will almost give them to you. That being said, they're an absolutely incredible lens and will make anything you take on, even the latest iPhone or Android, look pathetic. You could spend a tenth of money on a camera body and lens than you would on a new phone, and the photos will be so much better.
Wow, that's you know, we're gonna have to come back and do a little show on how to properly take pictures, because that is something, like I said, it's something that everybody wants to do, but very few people actually know how to do it, and it's not expensive to do it. It's not.
It's not. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be. That is great. You know, we're already at 2 hours. You know,
time flies.
Yeah, it's already 2 hours. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, 2 hours.
Things just quickly on the photography.
Yes.
It's incredible, one, to showcase your own tank, but some of the absolute highlights of my photography career, if you'll call it, has been having some of my photos on Aquaforist packaging and products.
Yes.
Through their competitions. Aquaforist run competitions to get on their Aquaforist calendar every year, which I'm honoured to have been a part of with, I'm pretty sure, every year. And some of those photos, then they've reached out and said, "Can we purchase?" And which I always say, look, I don't want to sell it. If you want to use it. And then they're super friendly. They always send me a thank you pack with, you know, some of their products, which is super nice. But realistically, I just get a kick out of walking into a local fish shop and seeing a bucket of salt with a picture that I've taken of my coral on it, or whether it be on Facebook or something, and someone sharing, has anyone used this? And I'll put a picture of a product, and it's got my coral or my fish or something on there that I take a picture of. I really love that.
So I did not, you know what? I did not know that. That was great. So you're on the picture of Aquaforist, some of the Aquaforest. I'm gonna have to hit you up and see which ones you are.
Yeah, a couple of the products. Yeah. It's really cool. I love it.
That's one thing about Aquaforist, and I gotta give Sev and the entire marketing company and marketing team, because, you know, at the end of the day, we are humans. We are visual people, and no matter how good the product is, if the packaging doesn't grab my attention when I walk in, you know, you're not going to sell as much as you would. And I mean, not to diminish the product itself.
No, definitely.
But you first have to see the product before you try the product. You know,
Agreed.
and the way they've packaged it with the purple, and you know, it was genius, because even as you go in with your wife, with your significant other, it's like, oh, I like that purple. Oh, that purple's cool. You know, and then, you know, it's like they already preconditioned to say, okay, this is okay to buy, compared to this that looks like a black box or a cardboard box.
Yeah.
You know, so I give
a laboratory equipment supplies. You know, again, we've got to try and move away from that science experiment. We've got to move into house friendly tanks and equipment where it looks like it should be there.
Yes, it is. So you know, one of the things that, you know, we're going to talk about lightly about this, and, you know, before we call it a day, or
sure.
A day for you, a night for me, you know, before I catch up to you tomorrow, you know, let's talk about, you know, and we talked about this off the air. You don't use controllers.
Yeah.
You don't use controllers, and there's a reason why you don't use controllers up until this time. And you know, be honest with us, why?
Yeah, it surprises a lot of people because, as you see by, you know, motorized doors and light frames, and you know, I open my garage door from my smartwatch when I'm a block away from the house, so I can drive straight into the garage like it's like I'm, you know, Batman entering the Batcave. And my whole house is kitted out with Philips Hue. Even the aquarium cabinetry is all smart lights. We've got smart locks, we've got cameras, we've got, you name it, we've got the technology in this house. I live and breathe it. And everyone assumes, because I love smart home technology and just technology in general, and I love reef aquariums, that I would have, you know, the best of the best controller out there, and I'd have everything automated via that controller, and I would be the shining example of tank automation using controllers on the market. And it's usually an awkward conversation when I say, no, I am not a fan of tank controllers. I really don't think they are in this millennium. When you compare things like smart home technology to reef aquarium controllers that have been around for the last few years, it's chalk and cheese. They're just, I don't really care about setting, being able to turn on or off a device from my phone. That's, I mean, I can do that with a $15 Wi-Fi controller. I want things that are smart and genuinely smart. I want things that integrate with the rest of my smart home. I want things that when my tank starts to get a bit hot or something's wrong, I want my house lights to flash red or something like that. I want things that don't require me to look at my tank or my tank controller or the application. I want it to work with the rest of my ecosystem. And the controllers to date have been very in the box. You can turn this on and off, and you can do, if this, then that for this device, and all within our ecosystem, and that's it. And that hasn't worked for me. I've tried them. I've tried a number of controllers now. In fact, pretty much every controller out there I've tried in hope that it's going to be the thing that removes the shackles from me and aquarium controllers. And after normally a month or two of trying each one, I get disillusioned and go, it's too hard. And I'm a programmer by trade.
Yes, you
so
are.
Programming does not bother me. And technology doesn't bother me. Networking doesn't bother me. But they're too hard and they achieve too little.
Okay.
At too much of a cost.
So what do you think of the Hydros control now? I mean, obviously it's been out for a month and you don't have it, but you've
Correct.
seen the videos, you've seen the interface and all that. Do you think it's bringing it up to the future, or at least to some extent?
What excites me about the Hydros is that you hit the nail on the head there. It's been a month. What you guys have achieved in a month has put the industry on notice. You guys have got years ahead of you to further develop, refine, evolve, enhance, take it to a whole nother level. With all due respect, what you've achieved in this month, you shouldn't have been able to achieve for a year or two. So the fact that you guys have absolutely shot out of the gates this quickly with a controller that is priced appropriately, has a user interface that, I mean, as a software developer, I always hesitate to say anyone could pick it up because, there's always a percentage that are not going to learn with any technology, but realistically, the majority of us, and it's not a huge crossover of people that have reef aquariums that are absolutely programmer tech nerds, yet so much of the aquarium equipment for controllers and automations seems to be narrowed down onto those who can code and can work out networks and do things. It's completely missing the market there, where the Hydros appears to, again, I'm not in Australia just yet, appears to absolutely take that to another level and be the number of posts I've seen from people saying that they didn't even read the manual, they just do what I tend to do and rip things out of the box, plug it in and see if you can work it out. And not only do they work it out, they have a good experience and can start achieving things sooner rather than later. Looks great. And then, I've chatted to a couple of people at CoralVue. We were just sort of spitballing ideas about, we're talking about the Philips Hue lights, and then we talked about the example of then integrating your controller through your connections with Philips to then work with the Philips Hue API and not being that closed. It has to be connected physically to this system for it to communicate. The fact that the Hydros is open to expanding out to that world, to sending off pings and commands to different things so that you can work off that whole object-orientated infrastructure rather than that old school physical connected infrastructure is absolutely game-changing. And it's been a month.
Yeah, so that thank you so much, because we've worked hard on that interface, and I always say on the streams, we some people like Apple, some people like Android, but the one thing that the birth of those two, the Android and iPhone, were Steve Jobs. If it wasn't for Steve Jobs coming up with the iPhone, it would have not pushed Google, it would have not pushed Samsung, it would have not pushed LG to come up with the phones that they did. It started the innovation about it. And we always said, if it takes more than 3 steps, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Go back, and you have no idea how many times the engineers like, but Carlos, no, I'm sorry, I'm putting it nicely, it's wrong.
Yes. Yes.
So
and you're right. The competition is what. Whether you're a GHL user, whether you're a Neptune Systems user, whether you're a Reef Keeper, whether you're a Felix Smart user, whatever it is, the more competition and guys starting to, for lack of better words, one up each other. Our controller can do this, and our controller can do this. That's how we see things evolve. That's how we move forward.
Yes.
Without that competition, things don't move forward. So the fact that you guys have achieved what you have achieved in a month is honestly mind blowing, because I'm super excited to see where it goes in the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, somebody brought a good point in here, and it's and we talked about this, the 15% early users, then the 70%, regular adopters, and then the 15% that will never change.
Yes.
And then it's Wi-Fi. Let's talk about Wi-Fi, because at the end of the day, let's talk about perspective. Remember when the iPhone first came out? And everybody's like, "Oh, I don't want the iPhone. I just want something that I can call and I can send text messages. I don't want this. I like my little Nextel. I like my little Prime. I like my little Samsung or whatever, or Nokia or something." And today, now, everybody has a smartphone out there. Or remember the time when we cut the cord on the landline? It's like it's change is not bad, people. Change is life. Life changes, things like that. If you don't want the Wi-Fi, that's fine. You don't want the Wi-Fi, but don't. There's somebody out there that might take it. It's like it's their choice.
This is something I deal with in my job on a daily basis, where we'll implement software solutions for what was a physical process before, and we always get it. I mean, you can just about bet your house on it, and I'm not a gambler, that 15% of the users will jump on board before you've even told them the mechanics of how it's going to work.
Yes.
They're like, "It's new, it's different. I'm on. I can't wait. Let's do something different. I'm excited."
Okay.
70% of people, so the vast majority, will be. I mean, they're using our Australian slang. They'll go, "Yeah, fair dinkum." And they'll put that slight bit of. It sounds good, but I have a lot of reservations, and they'll watch those first 15%, and then eventually they'll be won over by the first 15%. The last 15%, you could say every time you click this button, it gives you $10,000, and they will still hate it. You always get a percentage of people that never going to change. Never. I mean. We're working with communities, you can't aim for 100%. So you're going to get your 15% jumping on board straight away because they just want to see something different. The 70% will see the benefits. It will take a little bit of time. And like I said, I think considering that it's only a month in, that 70% is already starting to see the benefits of the Hydros. I think it's definitely an interesting couple of years ahead for you guys. I think you've got some pretty exciting times.
At the end of the day, we have 85% of the audience, based on that math and statistics. 85% of the audience is open-minded, and it's willing to at least consider it or look at it. It may not be good right now, but maybe 3 or 4 months from now, it may actually come to terms and say, "You know what? Now that you've come up with something that X, Y, and Z, then it's going to work perfectly." And like I told you before the show when we were backstage. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We have so many other things in queue, just waiting. I mean, literally, they are right at the line, at the starting line, but they're just not ready. We're not ready to trigger that gun to go with it because it's not there yet. But I think if you keep an open mind, and change is okay, guys. Change is okay. I mean, I remember when metal halides and LEDs came out, and oh my God, I remember when LEDs first came out and people were just putting them down. I mean, it's like, "Oh, I will never switch to LEDs. It's not going to work. That technology doesn't work." It's like, you can't have the power, you can't have the spread and everything. I mean, God, you can go back. Well, you can't, because there was no internet back then that the way it is now. But trust me, if you've been long enough, we've seen this before. And we know how the story goes. Exactly.
And it's one of those things, you approach something from a different angle. It always takes time to win people across. I mean, I think another good American example is Tesla. When they first came out, I mean, everyone thought it was a joke, electric cars. They're not going to compete with petrol. And now I think we're well and truly past the 15% phase there. They're one of, if not the largest or most valuable automotive manufacturers in the world. I think the 70% now believe. There's still a very vocal 15%, but where electric cars were considered 10 years ago to where they're considered now has been, no one could have predicted that, except for maybe Elon Musk, maybe. I don't know.
Nobody could have predicted that. And the funny thing about it is it all started with that. I mean, if you look back, it all started with the iPhone.
Yeah.
Because the iPhone brought that computer to your pocket, and now that computer transfers to your car, transfers to your refrigerator, transfers to everything. Right. It's that innovation.
Internet of Things.
It pushed everything to be compact and mobile, and that's so just everybody. I mean, I know the hydros might not be your cup of tea, but at the same time, let's respect everybody's choices, and just keep an open mind. That's what we want.
I know for a fact there are a whole heap of Australians watching with great interest to see how the hydros goes. And I mean, obviously we can't be the 15% early adopters here just yet, but there's a good percentage of folk watching to see where it goes, that's for sure.
Well, one thing I can tell you is the hydros itself, the hydros brain is both 120 and 220, 110 and 220. So it works on both. The only thing we're working on is that the power strip, but trust me, soon enough, you're going to be very happy. You guys are going to be very happy. News. I can promise you're going to be very happy. If you just hang in there, we have not forgotten about the rest of the world in terms of compatibility. We just need a little more time.
Of course, and you don't want to rush these things.
Yes.
You've started off so well. The last thing you want to do is rush a step now and tarnish all the good work you've done. So by all means, take your time, get it right. We'll be ready. Don't worry.
Fantastic. Well, we've gone the longest. You have so far right now. You have the record as the longest show that we have. Even
it's something that I'm afraid I'm all too familiar with when it comes to reef tanks. I mean, I could talk for days.
And this is let's go. In full circle back to the beginning. If it wasn't for COVID, honestly, Sam, do you think we would be having a conversation? Probably.
Who knows? Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not. But the fact that COVID happened and says, you know what, I can zoom in with my parents who live a few miles away. Well, if I can do that, why can't I zoom in with somebody in California? Well, if I can do that, why can't I zoom in with somebody in Australia? I mean,
exactly.
Why not? And it's just. That is the one thing that I take to heart. That it's the one thing that has come. The silver lining is it's made this world closer and also made us see each other for our similarities and not for our differences. Absolutely, yeah. It's not something that you wouldn't think. CoralVue. I mean. You supply America. I'm an Australian reefer, but I mean, we obviously have quite a lot of similarities, and yes.
I mean, I've learned a lot, so I hope I've been able to share something with some of your viewers as well. So I really appreciate it.
I've learned some slang in here.
Hopefully, you'll never have to use those.
I'll try to use them, but here in America, I'll probably be looking at me as like, what? What? It's like, wait a minute, what?
Classic.
Maybe I can start some kind of trend, something like that.
Why not?
Cool. Why not?
Crocodile Dundee will be back in fashion.
Well, I want to say thank you to everybody. I want to say thank you to all the guests. I know, guys, it's amazing. We've had we had a pretty good number of people stay, and they've stayed around to watch us. We love you. We love having you around. Thank you so much for visiting us. If you like the show, please, again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, because we release videos almost every week, or at least we try to. And we try to bring in guests from all over the world now. We got Europe, and now we have Australia. So we're trying to bring everybody together, and mainly so everybody can see that there is no one single way of keeping a reef tank. There's not for generalization, there's no wrong way of doing it. There's no wrong way of doing it. Everybody does it differently, and everybody has success. So whatever works for you works for you. Don't spend your time chasing somebody's numbers, because you're just going to end up frustrating yourself. So thank you so much for watching. Sam, thank you so much. Everybody, make sure you sign up Parker's Reef on YouTube. Register, because he's got this awesome setup. Maybe he can, and he's going to share videos about his new build. If you have, and it already started, so make sure you watch it, because he's brutally honest, and that's very refreshing. We love that. Thank you, Sam, for being here. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much.
I want to say thank you to April, our producer, Jeremy, our graphic director, and then Jeff, our social media director. I want to say also thank you to Dave and Brandy, owners of CoralVue. They're the ones that make this happen. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and stay safe. And after all, happy Thanksgiving. Be safe.
Thanks, guys.
Is how you play the game. Is how you play the game. Is how